Welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions. And today we're going to talk a little bit about story. Now, everybody really loves a good story, but how about an impactful one? Now, one that is actually going to help move the listener to take action. Those are the stories I'm talking about. And primarily the ones that are going to also support you in buying your product or service if you are the speaker. Now, my guest today is Tom Jackobs, who helps his clients really craft their impactful stories so that they can grow their business. Tom believes that storytelling is much more and is a part of it being not only art, but science, and combines the two, also adding in the drama to really create that remarkable story so that you as the speaker can transform the world. And we're all about that here on Creating Powerful Impact. So please help me welcome Tom to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. What's up, Tom?
So much. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here because, you know, events is all about stories. Right? The entire event is storytelling, and stories are the things that actually connect us, that allows us to remember things easier versus just like bullet pointing everything out. And I see a lot of speakers, and even myself, wanting to go, well, let me just give you everything. Like, here's all the nuggets, but it doesn't actually like seep in like stories do. So my question for you is, how do you even find a great story to tell in the first place?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. And that's something that a lot of people do struggle with, is finding that signature story or some story that they want to share with their audience. And a lot of times it's not the story that they want to share with your audience, but we work through that, because those can be the most impactful story. So what I always do is, the very first thing is take an inventory of different moments in your life that you learned something. And that's the direction, right? Just list out, don't qualify with, oh, that's a good story, that's not a bad, that's a bad story. Just write down life lessons, or the events that led up to a life lesson. And don't shy away and don't just think that they all need to be tragedies. We can have some comedies in there too. Life isn't all like, near life or near death experiences and rags to riches stories, but any story can become an impact story. So that's the very first thing, is to get an inventory of different life stories. And then the second step of that, which is my favorite, is I have the client go through and put themselves back into that situation and just remember what that event was. And what I'm looking for is, kind of shifting around in their seat, getting a little uncomfortable. Maybe their breath changes a little bit. I'm like, yes, that story, that we need to go into that one. Because whenever there's a physical reaction, pulse is increasing, the breath rate changes, you start to sweat a little bit, maybe. Those are the stories that have the most emotional drive and impact for yourself. And they're going to have that bigger impact for the audience as well. So we really dive into the ones that have that emotional charge to it.
So sometimes they're probably a little embarrassing, would you say?
Of course they are. Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you want to tell an embarrassing personal story from the stage?
Well, a lot of times, especially when selling an idea, selling a product or service, people do business with humans, right? It doesn't matter if it's B2B, B2C, we're still doing business with another person. And the more personal we can get, the more that the person who's buying from you gets to know you and understands why you're doing what you're doing right now. And when we understand why somebody is selling widgets or selling personal training or selling health services, then we're like, yeah, no, I'm with you, or I'm not with you. So we want to create that division so that your ideal clients are like, yes, I'm there. And your not so ideal clients are like, see you later.
Right. Yeah. So it's a qualifier to be like, oh, okay, he gets me, he sees me, he understands what I'm going through, or had something similar happen. Okay, you're my tribe, you're my community. Let me see what else you've got going on. Is that what you're saying?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
got it. Okay. So if somebody is a health and fitness coach, they're a chiropractor, they're a functional medicine doctor, like why in the world should they even be thinking about utilizing story to help them make more sales?
So those those are what I consider heart-centered kind of professions where you want to sell from your heart. And when you are giving your own personal story of why you're in business, or even just, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have any stories that relate to my product or service, which is fine. We can always find a bridge. There's always an easy bridge between the two. But getting, again, it's all about creating that connection with the prospect or prospects. So whether you're doing it from stage or you're doing a one-on-one presentation, you still need to create that connection, and personal stories are the best way to do that.
Okay. Okay. So it's really actually imperative that you have storytelling as a part of your sales
Yeah.
funnel and system and connection point is what I'm hearing you say.
If you want to sell more,
If you
yes.
want some more.
I mean, if you don't want to sell
Please.
anything and just go talk, then,
Yeah.
then talk.
Is there like a structure for creating that personal story?
Yep, absolutely. And it's a common structure that every Hollywood, well, every good Hollywood movie uses. And it's called the hero's journey. And you can Google it, and there's lots of diagrams on what the hero's journey looks like, and usually it's as a circle. I break it down into kind of the main elements of that story. So the first is what the hero's journey calls the inciting moment, and I call that the impact moment. So that's the do or die situation. So where there was a problem and it comes to a head, or there's a happy occasion and it happens, right? So it's that impact moment. We always start there, and that moment could be halfway through the story, it could be near the end of the story, but we always start there, and then we go back and lead up to what happened to get to that point. And then the next piece is, now we need some other characters. So we need a hero. You're the hero of your own story. And then you need a guide, somebody who helps you along the way. And it doesn't need to be a person. It could be a book. It could be a thought. It could be an idea or mindset that helps you get to the goal. And then you need a villain. And the same thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It could be a thought, a mindset, a book, a TV show, or nothing. Doing nothing is still an action. And so you need those characters as you're driving towards the resolution of the problem or the inciting moment. There needs to be some conflict that goes on that creates a really good story. So the villain's trying to stop you, and the hero's charging up the hill, and the guide's pushing him up there and cheering along, and the hero comes along, or the villain comes along and kind of slaps him down a few steps, and then he has to climb back up. So creating that drama. And then you have your resolution. So whether you achieve the goal or not achieve the goal, that's still a resolution, and then what you learn from it at the end. And I think that's like 6 steps that you go through.
Okay. I mean, makes sense. Like if you were to think of any Hollywood movie that is, something that you love, that is the journey that everybody goes through, and all the movies do. So why not just take the same system and put it into your own story? Now, would you suggest that they have their personal story that, say, is 20 minutes and then 10-minute and a 5-minute and like a 2-minute kind of version? Like, do you start with the big one and then you kind of like chunk it down depending on what situation you're in? Like if you're in a networking mixer, you're not going to necessarily do a 20-minute talk, right? So is that something that you also support your clients with?
Yeah, that's great. It's exactly, and those time frames were just about what we work on. So it's usually a 15-minute keynote story, and then we'll do the 5-minute sales presentation story, and then the elevator story. So the 1 to 2 minute version of the same story.
Yeah.
And we always start at the longer one, because it's
Yeah.
easier
It's easier.
to do the bigger one first, and then it's really hard to cut it down to 2 minutes.
Do you
Very,
have
very
an
difficult.
example of like a 2-minute? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I don't have it like off the top because I tend to ramble a little bit. But I do have kind of my yeah, I'll do this one. So have you ever had a dream that's been ripped out of your hand? That happened to me in 2008 when I attempted the very first to try to do a bodybuilding competition. And I spent 7 months preparing, diet, exercise, and it's one of the loneliest sports that you'll ever participate in, because it's just you and it's 24/7. You always have to be watching what you're eating, and you have to be exercising every day and getting down to that very low body fat and muscle. So the day of the event comes, and my whole family's flying into Houston, Texas, and I'm all excited. And I go up to the staging area. They do a morning judge, and then they do the evening performance. And the morning judge, I go up there, I'm new, I'm novice lightweight. And they say, okay, novice lightweight, you'll be on about 11 o'clock. So I was like, cool. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, that's perfect. I'll have time to kind of prepare. So I go back out to the parking lot, put my headphones in, I just kind of get in the zone and get ready for the competition. And about 10 o'clock, I go back in and I'm looking on stage, and I just have that moment where just my heart fell into my stomach, because the guys on stage were in the same weight class that I was in. I run backstage to the handler, and I'm ripping off my clothes as I run back there. And the handler goes, he sees my tag and he's like, oh, number 54, you should be out on stage right now. You're disqualified. You can't. I was like, wait, no. Wait, I have to. Like, my parents are coming in to see the performance tonight. I can't be disqualified. He's like, I'm sorry, you're too late. You should have been here. And nobody had told me that they had changed the time from 11 o'clock and moved it up to 10, because that's out in the parking lot. And at that moment, I don't know if anybody's done extreme dieting, but when you're down at like 1% body fat, you have no hormonal balance in your body. And to say I lost my crap is an understatement. I go out in the parking lot and I am just beside myself. And my father comes up to me and puts his arms around me. And I said, Dad, I failed you. And he's like, yeah, you didn't fail me. Just pick up the pieces and continue on. And I was like, okay. So I called my coach and I said, when's the next competition? And she says, it's in October, in 3 months. I said, good, sign me up for it. And I went and had a Starbucks caramel macchiato.
Oh my God, I love that. And then from there, you would probably just bridge it to whatever it is that you were moving into selling, right?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
into
God,
like
I love it.
a teaching moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so the teaching moment, then that story is actually really good for business. It's good for health and fitness. I owned a fitness center for 10 years, and so I would use my own body transformation when I was fat and got fit, and then I'd use this story as well as a way of showing that when you put your mind to do something, usually you can do it.
But I mean, there's just power in the story, right? Like, so you've told us, okay, you have the hero's journey and they sort of the parts and the pieces that you need to have of it. And right, that's that bullet point that I was talking about earlier. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can take notes on it. But now hearing a story explaining, essentially showcasing that hero's journey, you actually remember that. You remember, like, when you're at 1% body fat and you have that moment where your heart just sinks, and people in the audience can relate to it because they've had a sinking moment. Right. And I think that's also the key piece that you're teaching. It has to also be relatable to the audience. Not everybody has done a competition like that, but everybody's had a sinking moment.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Yeah.
that's the power of storytelling. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool. Yeah, and bringing the audience into the story as well. You probably heard me say, and maybe you've experienced this as well. Some, and I try to bring that in several times during any story, because you want to pull the audience in so that they don't feel like this is just about you, the speaker, but they can see themselves in that story as well.
And then that also just showcases you as a person and who you are and relatability, and then moves forward to going, okay, yeah, he's a part of my community. He's part of my tribe. Like, I would follow whatever he's got going on. I love that. I love that. So you mentioned earlier that you've had a couple of other businesses before this. And before, teaching storytelling and such now. I would love for you to like peel back the curtain and share with us, whether in this business, previous businesses, any kind of challenge that you might have had and how you've kind of gone about flipping it, or what the outcome was, so that we as an audience can also learn from that challenge.
Yeah. So let me get my long list of challenges I've gone through in 30 years of being an entrepreneur. Now, one that really, really stands out, and especially when it comes to storytelling and speaking, selling from the stage aspect. So I owned a fitness business for 10 years, and I almost went broke in the first 6 months because I had no idea how to run a small business, even though I'd spent 12 years in corporate America, managing millions of dollars in freight and logistics costs. I couldn't figure out how to run a small business, and go figure, because you have to wear so many different hats. But eventually that business was doing just really great. And the coaching company that it ultimately hired to help me with running the business, they saw the success I was having, and they asked me to start to coach for them. And then ultimately that turned into a sales role and then a speaking role. So they would book events, and this was the very first event that I went to. It was in Loughborough, UK. And so they flew me over to London, drove up to Loughborough, which is about 3 hours north of London, university setting, but they had this big fitness convention, and we were selling fitness marketing and coaching business. And I was in this auditorium, and there were 60 people, prime candidates for the program that I was selling. And I prepared weeks, like on the presentation, I was going to give them the 7 steps to selling fitness and how you needed to structure that. So I go through the whole presentation. I'm just giving everything I got, and good energy. Everybody's taking notes. Everything's great. At the end, I pass out the order form, take them through the order form, just putting your name here, check box that you want the what we're offering, put your credit card details in here, bring me up that sheet, and you'll be good to go. And out of 60, no one bought at all. 0. Absolutely nothing. And the owner of the company was not very happy, to say the least. He was kind of a different word. Yeah, it was hard to work with. So he was like, "You need to pay me for bringing you over here. You can't even sell, blah, 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 blah." I was like, "Oh, crap." So the next day, he actually had a friend that was really good at speaking and selling from the stage. And so he set up a half a day I spent with this guy. And I was like, oh, now I know what I did wrong. I gave too much to everybody, so much that everybody was like, I don't need to buy your stuff. Like, I have everything I need, which they really didn't. I mean, how can you absorb all that in an hour talk? But I gave them a false sense of, I got what I need. I don't need anything else. I don't need any more help. And that actually did them quite a disservice, But that was the first thing that just popped out when the guy, we reviewed kind of the presentation, and I redid it, and I had another presentation the next week. And this was only to 10 people, 10 buyers in the room, but all 10 bought.
Yeah.
I was like, bingo, right? So it's all about, I always say, give the what, sell the how. So you give them what they need to be doing to be successful, but how to do it and how to do it easier and faster is what you're selling. So don't give them how to do it too, because that's going to do them a disservice, because you can't, transfer that knowledge in an hour talk.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's so much that goes into it, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for events. Like people are like, oh yeah, I can do an event, I can do a webinar or a masterclass or summit. I just have to, do this technology and this, I just need to get up and talk. And it's like, sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Of
Yeah.
course. And
Nobody's tuning in.
Right. There's a lot to it. Like you can have all of the steps, but just case in point, I was coaching one of my clients. She was going to do a master class. And she's like, okay, asking me a question. So when I go and do the Zoom webinar, I was like, wait, Zoom webinar? No. We don't do Zoom webinars. We do regular Zoom, right? As the platform. And she's like, oh, why? And I'm like, because you can't engage with the audience in Zoom webinar like you can in regular Zoom. And just because she was thinking of doing a webinar, she thought Zoom webinar was the platform. And it's like, no. It's like those little tweaks and adjustments are the things that, I can teach you everything, but it's like those little things that your coach goes, no, wait, this is why. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Right. So
it shortens the learning curve.
It
so
does.
much.
You're paying for the accountability and the support and to go faster and not do all the mistakes that your coach is supporting you with.
Yeah.
You haven't had any of those, right, Tom?
No, that's why my fee is so high. I've had all those experiences already.
Right. It's cost a lot more than the fee, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. What is the best way someone can stay in touch with you? And do you happen to have a free gift for our audience today?
I sure do. It's called the Storybook. So it's the process of taking that story inventory and then developing the signature story ultimately through this workbook that I have. So it's just, I think it's 5 steps and takes everybody right through it. And that's at tomjackobs.com. It's tomjackobs.com/storybook. And they'll get that. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, all the regular places. There's only one Tom Jackobs in the world. It's spelled that way anyway. So it's easy to find me.
I love it. I think I'm the only one in the world too for Shay Weeks.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. All right. My last question for you is, what is a takeaway or a memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with?
And the biggest takeaway that I can think of, especially around storytelling, is don't be afraid to share a personal moment with people. You will be amazed at the amount of support that you will get from sharing a piece of you that normally you wouldn't share. And not only that, but it's going to help you grow your business as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Tom. I greatly appreciate you. And I want to thank all of our listeners for joining us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm excited for you to really take all of these storytelling lessons and these resources that you've learned here, start implementing them so that you can create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.